beauty and the beauty of her words. So Nuria, thank you so much for being here. And we are all very eager to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much. And I do want to say that it is my great pleasure to be here and be invited again. It's always good to be invited back again. And really, if anything good comes from this time together, it is really the blessing streams from all of the wonderful beings I've met and had the pleasure to study with, and truly just meet on a daily basis. Like Terry said, it's all right here, right now. It's not anywhere else. It's just right now. So the talk, when I was asked to make this presentation, it was quite a while ago I was invited. I thought, well, it'll be shortly after the new year. And I thought, to me, that the idea came for beginning again, because we're always beginning again. And I chose this quote, and it comes from my Sufi lineage, and the teacher's name is Inayat Khan, Hazrat Inayat Khan. And the quote is, "Out of the shell of the broken heart emerges a newborn soul." And I wanted to think about that for a moment, and we'll be talking about that through this time together. I want to just remember how we're poised here. 31 days ago, we struck midnight and said goodbye to 2020 and welcomed in 2021. And now, we're just 31 days later, the end of the first month of this new year. And perhaps it's a time to stop and reflect again. Just reflect on just that much time, not alone the whole last year, what we've experienced. So let's just together, can we take a breath and just sit within our own being, feel our ground, feel our breath, feel our unity, feel our best intentions. And although this group may be small, we are joining hands from around the world. Let's begin again together. Let's support each other as we begin again. And let's take a breath together in unity and radiate that unity like lighthouses from around the world. And I think it's also worthy of us and worthy of our time to just take a moment to remember all those souls who over this year have left us, left this planet. And some of those have been for various causes, but it's hard to not recognize the number of souls that have left due to the COVID virus. And each one of us have either been touched by someone that we've lost during this time. Again, could be from other causes, but we know the immense loss of life from COVID, and it's hard to ignore that. And I want to offer gratitude for those passing brave souls. Because of their lives and the passing of their lives, we've learned more about this virus. And all the doctors, all the nurses, the emergency workers, the healthcare workers, the scientists that are trying to advance the medicine to help us, it's all worthy of our prayer and our gratitude. And so we take a breath again. And we begin again. Again, the quote, let that sink into your heart and mind. Out of the shell of a broken heart emerges a newborn soul. So, even if we haven't been touched by COVID some way, your heart can't help but be broken every time you turn the news on or read the news. I mean, nearly 500,000 people have lost their lives just in this country alone. And really, our whole way of life has changed. We've had to learn how to begin anew. Early on in the COVID crisis, my husband, Joe, was assigned to work from home. And it allowed us to spend a little more time in the morning because he always left so early to get to work by 6 before. And we were watching the news together. And at one point, Joe, who some of you know Joe, he's both an engineer and he has a degree in clinical psychology, and he can be very insightful. I'm very fortunate to have him as a life partner. And and he's practical too. And he looked at me and he said, you know, I'm looking over here because he's sitting on the couch, and I want to offer my gratitude for him. He said, you know, well, if we get the coronavirus, what we do know is we're 2 weeks away from death, and there's some certainty in that. And that might sound to some really morbid and very strange, but for us, it was kind of oddly reassuring. And again, it was a very practical approach. This is what we're dealing with right now. We have to be practical, and we have to make every moment count. So I just want to, maybe a little raise of hands. Is it anyone out there have trouble letting go, just letting go of stuff, maybe even cleaning out closets and drawers? Anyone? Just only me? I see Neil. Anyone else? You know, just letting go is really hard. And what about change? Do we all just say, hey, change, come on in the door? Anyone have any issues with change? Can be a little scary for people. Okay. Well, one of the things that this brings me to, and one of the things that Joe's comment brought me to, and maybe us to, was the depth and the benefit of our spiritual practices and our religious studies throughout our lifetime. And so there's this beautiful teaching that I wanted to bring to you from the Buddha. The title of the teaching is called Dukkha. Dukkha is Pali, which means sorrow or suffering. This is going to get more hopeful, believe me, folks. But it's important to reflect on these principles and how beneficial they have been to spiritual aspirants. So there are these three aspects of suffering. And I want to talk about them because we're certainly in a time of suffering, and maybe even embracing that is helpful to us. So one form of suffering is the suffering of suffering. The suffering of suffering. And the Buddha, Lord Buddha, describes this as the pain of birth, old age, sickness, and death. This is the process. And each stage we have to let go. We have to be born again. We have to begin again. Then there's the suffering of change. And what this is having something and worrying that that will change or it will end. So that could be a relationship in a very ordinary sense, a job, a piece of pie that we're enjoying. Oh my God, soon this is going to end. These are very practical ways of looking at it. But bottom line is that we're concerned that things won't stay the same. But we all know things don't stay the same. They constantly are changing, beginning again, beginning anew. And then there's the last kind of suffering, and it could be categorized as a kind of all-pervading suffering. It's this, a kind of suffering that we don't always recognize, but it's like this, could be this underlying drone. It's kind of a background noise. It's an anxiety. It could be an insecurity that we feel. And this can even affect our happiest moments. It can seep in. We can tip to that. Especially now, I think that can be so, this anxiety and insecurity in a COVID reality. We're dealing with this. We maybe don't feel our ground. We feel things are out of control. And, you know, our very existence is questionable. Oh, especially in the early days. Who of us just was horrified to almost leave the house? But from a Buddhist point of view, these doubts are well-founded, and if we explore them, they give us glimpses of wisdom, and they become an agent to enlightenment, to greater wisdom. So this awareness, while it can be unnerving, it does push us, and it helps, again, as an aid and an agent of our meditations. Not in a fatalistic way, but here's the thing. If we meditate on suffering, we can actually increase our courage and strength because we see from this moment through our whole past life what's brought us to this moment and what we have endured. And that makes us incredibly strong and incredibly wise. Have you ever worried about something and you think, oh my God, this bad thing's going to happen, or this situation's going to arise, or this fight's going to emerge, or whatever that might be in one's life, but that never even happened. So we spent all that time worrying about something that was never going to come. And sometimes the outcome is far better than we could have imagined. It becomes a blessing. And the truth is, most things are a blessing. It's a matter of perspective. No matter how terrible they are, there's something in that for us to learn and grow from. So this kind of reflection brings us to the point of seeing and glimpsing the nature of impermanence. And the nature of impermanence teaches us nothing lasts forever. Neither those things that are good nor those things that are bad. It's always changing. If we can be patient, if we can endure, if we can continue to have love and compassion for others and ourselves, things do change. And what does the nature of impermanence teach us? It teaches us that we only have this moment, this breath. Things are simply as they are, and we can be present to each moment, and then the next, and the next, and the next. Who hasn't amongst us seen these photos from outer space and the planet that's going through this tremendous healing? The air's becoming clear, the waters are glistening, the earth is rejuvenating itself, and in one way it's very humbling because we think that we can control things. But the truth is, if we just stop and pause, and COVID's given us a chance to do that, things correct themselves. A great lesson perhaps for our own inner nature. If we stop and pause, perhaps things will correct themselves. Think about it. So as we reflect on the benefits that have been brought about the environment, we can also pause and realize what's happened to our collective humanity. Perhaps we've become closer because of this common suffering. And this moment, this historic moment, has incited new and innovative ways of communicating, just like now. Of course, it has its challenges, but we were patient. We helped each other, and now we're here together, and I hope no one's getting any feedback. But, we're coming together in these ways. Think of it. I mean, now we're being gathered from people all over the world. We would have never done that at Little's, in, I don't know, I think it was Parkville. It was Lee's, North Kansas City. I mean, there were a few of us that could gather there, and I remember coming one time in snow, which were even fewer there. So, these are also wonderful moments if we can embrace them. And my gosh, not only communication, but think about it. Shopping, hello, that's all changed, right? Aren't we doing more of that online? It could be a little dangerous. Be careful. You don't want the suffering of over shopping. Dining, Uber Eats. Joe's become a big fan of Uber Eats. And celebrating life together, even apart. We're doing that with Zoom and FaceTime. So one sweet moment that I want to share with you that just happened a few days ago. Our black lab, Parker, and we take a walk every morning. And I tell him, we're going to walk the wall, Parker. We're going to walk the wall. And he looks at me. And then there's this seawall that goes across the beach area. We have a beautiful white, very deep sandy beach leading up to the ocean here. And we walk that wall. And we play follow the leader. So sometimes Parker wants to lead and I have to follow him. Sometimes I lead and he follows me. Well, this one day, I don't know what it was. It was a beautiful day, as I recall, but there weren't very many people on the beach. And we came across this scene. I kind of shook my head. It's like, am I dreaming? Because it was this whole scene of, like from 1001 Arabian Nights. There was this tent that had been set up, and there were curtains, and they were blowing. There was a huge palm tree where the setting was, but they had also put a potted palm. There was a little couch. I could tell there was a champagne bucket with a bottle of something delicious, I'm sure, in it. There were vases of flowers, and it was just so beautiful. And there were several people kind of hustling and bustling, and I couldn't help myself. I'm so inquisitive, 9 lives of the cat, I guess. But I yelled out, it's like, what's going on over there? Is it a party? Is it a wedding? What kind of celebration? And this beautiful girl, she had slightly darker skin, and she just had this bright smile, long flowing hair. She runs over and she said, oh, this is a business concept that we're launching. I said, really? I said, it's incredible. You've created such beauty here. What is it? She said, well, we call ourselves the outsiders. And the concept is we do these little pop-up things wherever people want them. So we can do birthday parties, we can do little engagement parties, we can do anything you want, which is we're available. And we can setting up outside wherever you want it so people can come together. And I thought, how brilliant. And they were very young. Another woman came over. They were working on it together. They were young ladies. And I thought, this time of COVID has given birth to this kind of entrepreneurship, and it's a great concept. So I wish them good luck, and I wish all those that have this entrepreneurial spirit and courage to begin again, begin anew, begin to break out of the shell that has been wounded, our hearts, our minds, and to find new growth from that. So much success to those young ladies. And again, they're called, you can look them up on Instagram, they're called The Outsiders. And then it's MIA. So I thought of it like Miami, but it could be missing in action. I don't know. But you could look them up. That's a great idea. But you know, throughout all of this, I've been asking myself, because this is a burning question I've asked myself throughout my life. Where's God in this? It's easy to see God when things are going great and we're happy and we feel like all bountiful gifts are flowing down from heaven. But what about during difficult times? I have used that as a tool. I was speaking to a friend of mine that lives part of the year here. I think he's online, Benito. And he was asking me about my connection to spirit. We had a lovely conversation a few days ago out in the sun and the wind, beauty here. And, you know, I think my bottom line is God for me has been very accessible in those difficult times. You know, there's been challenges in my life, I'm sure, as everyone else's, and sometimes it makes us go deeper. Again, out of the shell of the broken heart is born a newborn soul. So just looking at what is the purpose of all what we're dealing with worldwide, you know, the sacrifices, and I have a pretty extended group of friends, and they communicate with me kind of nonstop because half the world is sleeping while we're awake and vice versa. So I'm either responding to emails or WhatsApps or you know, text messages. And so here's something very interesting. I started to get my answer a few weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, we had some medical professionals visit us here. And these people are scientists who specialties are in oncology and were kind of at the forefront at organ transplants, working with those people that were really the pioneers in that. So you know that naturally they have seen a lot, they've had to let go of a lot. They've had to let go of concepts of science, but they've had to let go of people in these processes. Well, you know, they didn't seem at all flapped by this whole idea of the coronavirus, and even though one of them, their partners, husband and wife, the gentleman had become very ill, hospitalized, and he was having, his wife, who's a friend of mine, was calling me. She was making plans for his funeral. They didn't think he was going to bounce back from this. He did. There are some amazing drugs now, and he did. He received those drugs in hospital and was able to leave the hospital within a week's time, and really in some ways stronger than ever. He's older and he also has pre-existing conditions. But you know what? They didn't let that discourage them. They took the courage to come from the Midwest and visit us in Florida, and we, although cautious, took the courage to, luckily we're in a warm climate, we opened all the sliding glass doors and all the windows, we had all the wind blowing through, and we all wore our masks. And we wore them, you know, if we were outside in distance, it was another thing, but we were very careful here, and lots of dishwashing and hand washing. So far, so good. We've reached the 2-week point, so we're okay and they're okay. We know that they're okay. So I was asking them, because I really respect them as people and as scientists and as doctors, and she's a nurse. And I said, so what do you think of the COVID-19 vaccine? Because there's controversy. People are on both sides. Take it, don't take it. Oh, it's, this is, we have conspiracy theorists, et cetera, et cetera. And I've heard it all. And they said, this vaccine is nothing short of a miracle. And they repeated it several times. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And I started to think, maybe this is God's gift in all of it. So what they said to me was that this vaccine was advancing and applying the knowledge from the Human Genome Project. Now, I'm sure all of you know what that means, but I'm going to explain it anyway, just briefly. This was an international collaborative research program, and the goal was for mapping and understanding human genes, hence the name genome. Again, part of the miracle, God's gift. So as I said, my friends kept saying, this is a miracle. And I said, but why? And they said, because it was the very thing that encouraged science to advance to understanding and controlling what they called mRNA. M, small m, capital RNA. We may have some scientists here and they may know what that means, but would the rest of you like to hear what it means? Okay. So this is the part of this talk where, we're taking spirit and we're seeing how it commingles with matter and forms matter. So, again, this is so encouraging and uplifting, at least for me, and I hope for you. So first we have to go back and we have to take a little look. Oh, no. Yeah. Let me just be sure. Yeah, I want to be sure I'm on track. So the RNA stands for, and it may not matter, but it's important, ribonucleic acid. And it's a molecule essential in every biological role. So this RNA is responsible for coding, for decoding. So, how do those things get flipped off and on? These all has to do with genes, for regulation and for expression of genes. So, I have dark hair because my certain coding reads this way. Somebody else has blonde, redhead, whatever, eyes, so forth, skin tones. And both RNA and DNA are these nucleic acids, okay? But the piece that was missing was this little M before the RNA. And the M stands for messenger. Messenger RNA, mRNA. And this little piece of information is like a single strand of RNA, and it's a molecule that's complementary to one of the DNA strands. Unbelievable how they're discovering this and scripting it, but it's kind of taken the COVID moment to do this, because up until this time, they didn't have anything that was really working at this level to control something of this nature. So I did more research after they left, and I found Harvard Medical School published an article, and the title of the article is "Why Are mRNA Vaccines So Exciting?" That was a great title. I'll come back to this in a minute, but why are they so exciting? Let me go back for a moment and just tell you what's brought us to this moment, because it's so good to know and to appreciate everything that's come before. So 30 years ago, there were a group of researchers, scientists. They were at Pfizer, who we know is producing one of these vaccines, and they were working with a German company called BioNTech. And we know that they have worked together to create this vaccine. And there was also a young company in Massachusetts, this 30 years ago, called Moderna. We've heard of them too. So to bring the mRNA vaccine technology to the threshold of this actual moment, they've been working. They've been searching for and building platforms, theoretically, without application yet, up to this moment, for vaccines for infectious diseases, simply by trying to insert the right M messenger RNA sequence into the disease. They had not met with success up to this moment. But the main goal of a vaccine, for any particular, we know this because we've all received smallpox vaccines and tuberculosis, etc., is to teach the immune system to look for the vaccine and then to educate the immune system, this is the vaccine, and then to attack it, okay? So then came along again COVID-19, and back to the Harvard article. and I'm going to just be brief, but this is the sequence of things that happen. And if you've been watching the news, you're aware of it, but it probably won't be put in this pithy way. So within weeks of identifying the virus in China, they had determined the structure of all the genes, including the genes that created that awful little spike protein that replicates quickly. And they published the information on the internet. They made it common knowledge. And within moments, it going on the internet, scientists tens of thousands of miles away began working from that knowledge on the messenger RNA structure for the vaccine. And within weeks, they had made enough vaccine to first test on animals, and then we saw that they were testing it on people. And in just 11 months, both the UK and the US confirmed that the mRNA vaccine for COVID-19 was effective and could be safely tolerated. And that paved a way for a widespread distribution of this vaccine. Now, I know some of us are all waiting on it. In Florida, there are a lot of old people, so I was able to get it because I'm an old person too. But at any rate, previously, there had never been a vaccine that had been developed in such a short period of time, nor one that had been so quickly approved FDA. I'll talk about that in a moment. But why is this so important? Why is this a miracle? Okay, we're going to maybe be saving some lives from the COVID. We'll build up our tolerance and maybe we'll get a herd immunity experience. But what is really, really, really very important, really why it's a miracle, is that now we're able to work towards vaccines for Ebola, Zika, different kinds of flus. Not only that, cancer cells can be targeted by these mRNA, these scripted. It takes the memory of the genes pre-cancer, reintroduces it into the body, and it starts to heal itself. It's unbelievable. To me, it is. And it's God's gift. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Divine spirit, whatever you want to, divine intelligence, whatever you want to call that presence in your life. They've even found that this mRNA vaccines, a type of them, they're reporting huge, and I know this will mean something to some of my friends here because they've been touched by this, melanoma. And we know that that's a very fast spreading kind of cancer. But they're also finding if they can produce these proteins that are missing from the the memory RNA, they're working on other diseases. Like I said, cancer and cystic fibrosis, and this could lead to advancements in Parkinson's and, MS. I mean, we have no idea, but it is, like my friend said, it is a miracle. So we can look at the sacrifices of all those and the efforts of all those that have experienced COVID either themselves or through the loss of a loved one or friend, and we can see that we've been brought to this moment where we can rescript our bodies. I'm going just a little bit farther and then I'm almost done, but I want to talk about this from a personal point of view. I was talking with Mickey and Jeff and Sydney at midweek this week, or maybe it was Tuesday. We chatted. We were testing the Zoom for naught, it seems like today. But anyway, I shared a personal experience about this, and I gave an example, and some of you have heard this many times that are my friends, about my own mother. My mother had a very rare form of cancer. They didn't know much about it, but what they did know is that traditional chemo and traditional radiation didn't even touch this cancer, and it was very quick reproducing itself. Well, she had this diagnosis in 1999, the end of it. Her doctors called me and they said, we don't even have a category for this. Usually stages of cancer are 1 through 4, but we'd call this stage 5, which means death is imminent. We don't know how your mother's even functioning now. And so they advised me to be sure that my mother's, all of her affairs were in order. But they went on to say, there's a glimmer of hope. There's a glimmer of hope. Up until the COVID virus, there was one other drug that had been fast-tracked through FDA. So don't be afraid just because it's been fast-tracked. It was called Gleevec. And this drug, my mother's tumor cells did respond to it. And from having that, and it has I was explaining to the three of our friends here that it has nanorobotics. It was delivered in a pill form, and mother would she took 6 of them because she was pretty far gone, obviously, a day. And those pills had this intelligence in it. And what it did was, once assimilated into her system, it released these nanorobotics. And they had the intelligence to know where rapid cell division was happening. And they went in and they gobbled up that cancer and they took it out of her body. How incredible is that? So these kinds of advancements we see as God's gifts. God's gifts. And not only that, my mother, from being a death sentence 1 step away from the grave, lived for 15 more years in a very healthy and happy way. We shared a lot of good times together. So out of the shell of a broken heart, and it broke my heart thinking of losing my mother so quickly, emerges the newborn soul. We had to grab our courage and face this, and then we were given a gift, a miracle. Well, I think I'm coming to the end of my time. I could go on, but I probably shouldn't. But aside from these words, thinking of how out of a broken heart emerges a newborn soul, you can think of it. Think of the baby bird pecking from the inside, knocking from the inside to break out of that shell. Or think about the butterfly. There's a lady here that releases butterflies. She cultivates them from their little, I don't know what that's called. She has a special name. I'm sorry, I don't know. But she cultivates them, and then she sees when they're ready to be released, and then she waits till their sun, because their little wings are wet when they emerge, and they have to dry in the sun, and once they start flapping those wings, they just take flight. It's a newborn soul. We are that. So let's reflect on just these words for a moment, which I haven't mentioned to this point, but we all know them. And it helps us to see, to recognize the miracle in the messiness of life. And it helps to elevate our consciousness, our spirit, our heart, our mind, to reach towards heaven and unite heaven here on earth. Because really, as I said, it's only this moment. And it's up to us to unite heaven and earth. In our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, in our thoughts. And let's just reflect. I wanted to lead a meditation, but I don't think I have time. Do I? Can someone shake their head? I'm okay, a little bit of time. Okay. We'll go through this quickly. The prayer the line of the prayer is from the Lord's Prayer, and I think most of us know that. And this line, if you say it again and again, maybe just do it for this week. Think, oh, Nuria or Stephanie, whatever you want to call me, said, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to remember this. When I'm feeling challenged, I'm going to remember this. When I'm happy. This line, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. A miracle from tragedy. Spirit and matter uniting. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Just take a moment and breathe that from the place where you sit, the bottom of your spine. Breathe the words in to your crown and a little beyond, and back down again. I'll say the words while we breathe in. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And then down, out. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Again, in. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And out. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Let these 2 points touch each other. If you think about it, the base of the spine and the crown of the head, where do they unite? In the heart. Feel your heart, share your heart. Out of the broken heart emerges the newborn soul. Remember those words. And we close now with a little prayer. Beloved Lord, Almighty God, Spirit, Divine Friend, elevate our consciousness and lift us in prayer to touch heaven, bringing heaven to earth through our openness, through our love, through our gratitude, and through our wisdom. Amen.
Right. So thank you. Really, that was extraordinary. And I'm very, very grateful